Okay, good afternoon to all of you. I hope I'm properly audible. Okay, so welcome you all, in another session or another session of the boot camp on history optional. And as you all know, that in the last three sessions we had been discussing basically about ancient. Then we did discuss about the medieval. Then we discussed the modern, and then today we are going to discuss about the world history. Correct. So as far as this world history is concerned, the theme of the world history is very different. And as we can see the theme, this is day 4, and the theme is navigating world history, thematic insight with minimal details. Right. That is the theme of it. It is like bit creative, and that's why you might have some confusion on it. So it's navigating world history, the thematic insight with minimal details, right? That is the basic idea. Now look, as far as this world history is concerned, in the world history, basically there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind, right? In world history, what happens, we can see the syllabus. In that case, the syllabus has covered more or less everything in the world, and specifically the details which started from, let's say, enlightenment, or let's say 16th century, and then from 16th century it goes up to 20th 21st century, I must say. And in between, whatsoever detailings are there, or whatsoever important events were there, either you say in case of Europe, or else you say in case of America, and then Southeast Asia, then China, then Africa, then even Africa. So all these parts have been given in your syllabus, and that makes it a bit complicated for you. Why it becomes complicated? Because there are so many things that you need to cover here. And when it comes to covering the history, so of course when it comes to the Indian ancient history, and then Indian medieval history, and then Indian modern history, at that point of time, somehow you needed to study only that history of India, and in a specific period, and that's how your the period was minimal, right? And in fact the period and the regions were less, and that's how you are supposed to get into much detailing of it. But the moment it comes to the world history, it is practically impossible. And that's the reason, because of what, in world history you have to perform very smart, you have to act very smart, because if you are not following this particular trend in world history, in that case it is going to be very problematic for you. So when it comes to the world history, right, in world history, as I have already discussed, that in your syllabus there are multiple things which are there, correct? And in fact, it is almost next to impossible that you have been covering the European history, the American history, the African history, the Chinese history, the Southeast Asian history, right? Like everything, and African history as well, right? Everything in the same way, the way you had been covering the ancient, medieval, and modern of the Indian history, right? That is practically impossible. And this is the reason, because of what, as I told you, that we have to act very smart. And here you have to understand the need or the demand of the paper very smartly, and you have to prepare as per that only, correct? Now the another thing that you have to keep in mind, that when it comes to the world history, for a very long period of time in the world history, it was assumed that what is world history. So in case of world history, there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. First of all, the most important thing, that it is only the modern world history, right? It is modern world rather than ancient, and it is just the modern world. That is one thing, fine. Now what is the next thing I had been saying you, that in modern world the Europeans had always the dominance, since it is believed that history writing and other things, ultimately they had started from which period, or by which people? The European people, correct? And it was not, I won't say it was a medieval phenomena, undoubtedly, sorry, it was a modern phenomena, rather, as far as the history writing is concerned, that was very much present in the ancient and the medieval times also. But the modern perception for the history is remains the history remains very different as compared to the ancient and the medieval understanding of history. In medieval times, what happened? Somehow the religion was one of the core player in history, and that's the reason, because of what, everything in medieval times, whatsoever histories were being written in the medieval time, they were very much influenced by the religion, or let's say the the religious development, and the society was also pretty much linked in the medieval times with the religion. And you have studied, if you have studied history, in that case you all must be knowing that it was believed that religion was not only a major player in polity, but even in society and other aspects also. And that's how the Roman history was very much religious in nature. But by the time you enter, into the modern period, the history was also transforming along with the changes in the other dimensions, and that's how a different kind of history appears. And in this particular history, there were so many developments have happened. So since the European peoples were primarily leading this history writing, and that is the reason because of what, somehow once, there was one point where the European history was considered to be the main or the core part of the world history. And this is one reason because of what, while asking, or while asking the questions, somehow the European history had been given greater importance in the preference. But then over the period there is a change which is coming, and that change is coming gradually. And in fact, in last couple of last couple of years, what I have noticed that now the world history has become more widespread. And this is the reason because of what, now they have, the people, those who have been framing the question from the world history, now they have started switching, or started diverting from the European history, and they have started asking the history of the other continents, which were other continents which remained ignored for a very long period of time. So this is one major change that you have to keep in mind, and probably this is the reason because of what, now the questions from Africa, the questions on USA, though I won't keep USA in that category, but yet the number of questions are increasing from USA. And then we can say Southeast Asian history, that is all another part. And then Africa have already written. So basically, the history of these eras, of course, there's one another thing that's very important that I had been ignoring, that is about the Latin America. Frankly speaking, 10 years back, when you had been studying world history, we majorly focus on the European history. And in fact, all those important developments, either it is Renaissance or it is Enlightenment. In fact, Renaissance was initially part of the syllabus directly. Right now it is not part of syllabus directly. Rather, we have noticed that world history starts from basically Enlightenment, not Renaissance. Though yet, I believe that understanding Renaissance is very important, because without understanding Renaissance, you won't be able to comprehend that how Europe enters into this modernity, and what are those important things, or important features of the society which are changing. That's how basic understanding of Renaissance remains very important. But yes, formally it is not part of it, right? So what happened, earlier, as I told you, that when it comes to the European histories, major development were covered by the historians, and in fact by the in the UPSC questions. And then now you find that they have been switching to these paths, and now the questions, in good number, they have started appearing from this particular portion. And this is how, it is a sort of major change and the major transformation that can be noticed. Okay, fine. The another thing, that we have to understand, the nature of questions are also in certain topics. I won't say that in every topic, the nature of questions have also started changing in the world history. At one point of time, the questions were very traditional. Well, the questions had been coming from very traditional sort of thing. And let's say, any topic for that matter, you have been picking up. Let's say you have been picking up in any topic. Let's say American Revolution. So when it comes to American Revolution, what do you select from American? What you can expect from American Revolution? The most important thing that could be asked from American Revolution was the reasons or the factors behind the American Revolution. That's it. But then, frankly speaking, the American Revolution could not be studied only with respect to only with respect to the reasons or the factors behind the American Revolution. Rather, I must say that there might be much more ways in which the American Revolution could be understood, and there are multiple dimensions. This is what I have been simply saying. Or else, when you talk about the American history, let's say the Constitution of America. Now, Constitution framing of America is a very important development, and without studying the constitutional history of America, I believe that you won't be able to cover the American history. So this is the reason because of what, I must say, now you need to have a good trace over the nature of questions. And in fact, they have started hunting multiple dimensions from the world history. There was just one example I had been giving you, but then there might be a number of such examples where you can understand that how the nature of the questions have been drastically changing in the world history. But does it mean that you have to get very deeper. You have to study several books on history. I'll come to that later on. Right now I'll say simply no, like you are not supposed to get this much deeper into that. Okay. So nature of question is another thing which is very important. The another thing in world history that you have to keep in mind, which is very much applicable in modern India also, and that is about the statement based question, right? Statement based questions. Now, most of the questions in world history you can find that they have been asked to you in terms of statements. What are they doing? They are just asking the statements, and they statements, and then it is one area which creates several problems for you, because when it comes to statements, now it is easy to say that okay, fine, you have to identify that who said this statement, right? Who has given? So any maybe historical personality has given it, or else some historians might have given it. So this is one thing. Then the second thing, what is the context of it, right? That is the another important query that you guys are having. If you have a better understanding of who said it, and then what is the context, or in which particular context somebody has said this, in that case it is better or it is easy for you to analyze it. That's how you believe. But then frankly speaking, is it practically possible that you somehow catch all the statements which are being asked? It is practically impossible, and that's why don't chase the statements and specifically the information who said it. Context is always very important, because without recognizing the content, it is impossible for you to write the answer of those kind of questions, right? That is the reason, because of what context remain very important. And in fact, the context could be it would be easy for you to understand the context only once while reading the subject you pay proper attention to certain such certain conceptual understanding of this part. So context becomes easy. ऐसा इतना मुश्किल नहीं है context समझना. So basically when it comes to the world history, these are couple of things that you have to keep in mind. And then of course I'll go further and I'll try to understand that what are the areas from where complicated questions are coming, what are the new areas which are being hunted. That's the another thing. And how to cope up with these areas, this is what we'll try to address in this particular lecture. Okay, fine. So now as we have discussed it in the last the way we have discussed it in last few lectures, in the same way we are going to discuss the world history also. So if we'll go to the world history, in that case we'll find the this is the syllabus, and these are first two units of the syllabus. So the first unit is asking about the enlightenment and the modern politics, right? Oh, sorry, modern ideas. So it is a very important topic, and in fact every year you might find the questions from this part, right? So what are the topics within it? So it is major ideas of enlightenment. That is one topic. And then there are two philosophers are there. They are Kant and Rousseau. Fine. Then the spread of enlightenment in the colonies, and then rise of socialist ideas. That is up to Marx. Spread of Marxism, Marxian socialism. These are three topics which are there, or three subunits which are there. Now, how UPSC is framing question from this particular part, that also we need to understand. And for that, I'll be going to another page to make you understand. Uh, wait a second. Okay, if we'll see that the first unit, first of all, let us understand the repetition of the questions. So they have asked the questions in 2014, then 20, 21, 22, 24, right? So understand the point. What happened 2000 14, they asked one question, and that was about enlightened despots in Europe, right? And then there was a long gap of 6 years, and then very frequently they started asking the question from this part. So enlightenment, or the idea of enlightenment as a whole, or the idea of enlightenment basically as a idea of enlightenment basically, I must say, as a conceptual topic, that is gaining significance in last few years. So earlier what happened, they were not giving giving much preference to this particular topic, but then now the frequency is increasing. So that is how I told you that here you have to understand enlightenment is one thing, right? Enlightenment is one thing which is conceptually a very complicated topic, because understanding enlightenment, its various impact over the society, it is not that easy to understand. So here you have to instead of just compiling the notes on certain dimensions, you have to understand it in such a way that you can connect it by your own if a new dimension has been asked in the examination hall, because now the frequency is increasing from this particular part. On the other hand, there are philosophers which were there. Now these philosophers used to be very frequent in the previous pattern, and in fact mostly the questions were being asked on the philosophers. But now you can find that the number of questions are getting less, 14, 18 and 23. If you see the questions between 13 to 24, in that case, like you can see that only there were 3 questions which have been asked from this part. On the other hand, if you see the Khan, which is, I like cannot say that he's become irrelevant, but then yes, now in the current scenario, Khan does not remain that much important the way he used to be earlier, and that is how the number of questions are also getting lesser. In 2013 they asked one question, 2017 they asked one question, and last 7 years they haven't asked a single question from on Immanuel Kant. So that's how I can say that now the yeah, this particular topic, which is called as the enlightenment, the major ideas of enlightenment and the spread of enlightenment, that has become more important than the philosophers. But then while reading enlightenment, unfortunately we focus more on what? We focus more on basically the philosophers. On the other hand, there is another idea, right, which is gaining more importance. One more thing, as far as this second topic is there, right, sorry, the second topic is there, spread of enlightenment in the colonies, like that is also something which is not very frequently being asked. But then when it comes to the third part of it, now you can see that the number of questions are increasing in such a way. So that is socialist idea, and then Marxian socialism. So 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23. So almost all every year they have been asking, almost every year. So basically in last 11 years they have asked the questions, in seven questions they have asked on this topic. So the moral of the story is very simple, is somehow the Marxian socialism or the Marxist idea is becoming important, and whenever they have been frequently asking the question from one topic, in that case it becomes more important for you that it won't be they won't be repeating the same theme again and again. If they have been asking a question on Marx or Marxian socialism after 4 or 5 years, in that case there are high chances that they are going to repeat the topic. But if they have been asking so frequently, in that case they would start hunting the new dimensions on this. That is what you have to keep in mind. And if you see the nature of the questions, frankly speaking, now it is changing also. Look at the last question. Engels did much more than Marx himself to popularize the ideas of Marxism. Now, normally we do not focus on these kind of things, but then they have been asking these kind of questions, right? So that's how, while doing this particular topic, I hope you got the point. What are the things which should be given more weightage while preparing this topic? Moving to the next one is about the origin of the modern politics, right? So if you'll see the syllabus of origin of modern politics, what are the topics in it? European state system, American Revolution in the Constitution, French Revolution and aftermath, and then American Civil War with reference to Abraham Lincoln and the abolition of slavery, then British democratic polities 1815 to 1850, the parliamentary reforms, free trade and the charters, right? Now this is the syllabus. And how does it reflect in your syllabus? Let's see it. If we'll see this part, so the first is American Revolution. I did tell you that American Revolution had always been important, right? इसमें कोई शक नहीं है कि American Revolution important है, and there are multiple reasons because of what American Revolution is important, right? But then again we'll find that the questions are being asked on American Revolution on some regular intervals. And American Revolution, as I told you, that it is one of the events in the world history that had been studied in a very extensive way. And there are numbers of there are numbers of ways in which it is being studied. There are so many debates regarding this American Revolution. So this is how you can understand that now it is becoming important. And here again I'll see, in fact this is the thing I had been discussing, that if we'll see American Revolution, they have started asking such kind of dimensions that if you are not conceptually very sound on these things, in that case it will be very tough. Look at the last question again, 2023. This question was asked: do you understand that the lack of statesmanship in London during the 1960s and the 1760s and the 1770s was an important contributory factor in precipitating the American Revolution? Analyze. Now it is asked just on one dimension, that how come the lack of statesmanship in London had become also one reason for the American Revolution. So this is how I am simply trying to suggest you that now you have to, the topics which are more frequent, you can find that they have been basically hunting the new dimensions. So this is what you have to keep in mind. American Constitution, frankly speaking, it is for me it remains very important, but the UPSC is not giving due weightage to this and explain the it's simply asking explain the main features of the US federal constitution. तो जब भी कोई टॉपिक से ये लोग पूछना शुरू करते हैं तो टॉपिक्स के क्वेश्चन कैसे होते हैं, दे आर मोस्टली सिंपल इन द नेचर. द मोमेंट दे आर increasing the number of the questions, like the topics also become like the questions also become complicated. So अभी पहला क्वेश्चन पूछा तो पहला क्वेश्चन बहुत सिंपल बच्चे वाला क्वेश्चन पूछा कि what were the main features of the US federal constitution. The moment they'll start asking like the question more frequently, what I expect that gradually the number of questions might increase from the topic of American constitution. Then they may ask anything like आपसे न्यू जर्सी प्लान पूछ देंगे, आपसे कनेक्टिकट प्लान पूछ देंगे. ठीक है, अभी तक शायद probably you are not having even ideas also like what are these two things, these two plans. But then over the period you can expect like question. But so far like in 2016 there was just one question that has been asked. American Civil War is important. And again, I can say after every regular intervals, 13, 16, 20, 21, like 24, the questions are being asked. Like, and in fact, whenever you study the American Civil War, now don't study only with respect to this Lincoln and abolition of slavery, because this was a very old dimension of Civil War. Now, Civil War or behind the Civil War, there are several other factors were also there. And this is the reason because of what it should be prepared with the other perspectives also. And like from here like it's coming, like look at the question, like this is what I had been telling you, that now in 2021 and 24 like they have asked two questions, and both of them were not based on slavery, rather they are based on the conflict between North and South. And you won't be able to talk about this conflict between North and South until and understand the history of America properly, जहाँ पे आपको ये पता चले कि नॉर्थ और साउथ के बीच में कितनी पुरानी एक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है या राइवलरी है. So that can like help you to somehow decode this particular part in a better way. So what I can say, yes, you need to be very careful here. And then as I always used to say, always understand the things in a sort of like with a holistic approach, right? Okay, then it comes to the French Revolution. French Revolution has always been important. ये एक ऐसा टॉपिक है लेकिन जिसपे आप जो है मतलब in the world history always it is a very important topic. But here like number of questions are getting down from this topic also. Again, it is a very old topic. So 14, 15, 16, like earlier that's you see the frequency, and then after that 2022, like then they have reduced the number of questions. But then the questions on the aftermath, specifically on Napoleon Bonaparte, they have increased. And then you can find that they like 2000, like they have asked the question in 15, 17, 19, 20, 21, 23. So now it is becoming more frequent. And frankly speaking, when it comes to Napoleon, now Napoleon's like reforms or Napoleon's various acts, they were properly not like they were not being paid proper attention earlier, but then now they have started like picking up one institution or one system of Napoleon, and they have started framing their question on this, such as the codification of the French law, like 2023, Napoleon's continental system, like that was like asked in 2021. So these are certain new dimensions they have started hunting. So Napoleon has become more important than the French Revolution to you. That also you need to keep in mind. Okay. Next is the British democratic polities, like so of course it is an important topic, but then like lesser number of questions are there, 13, 14 and 23. इसमें कुछ नया नहीं है करने के लिए, बहुत नए कुछ ऐसा like just no new things, like it has been studied pretty well, and in fact the same things are there. So if you go for a sort of very balanced sort of understanding of this, you are having certain points like fair enough, that's like not very important. Free trade, just 2019 they asked one question. Chartists, like this is where new topic they have started asking, and as 17, 21 and 22 like they have increased the number of questions. So in this particular part, frankly speaking, there is nothing like as such very new to understand. हाँ, थोड़े थोड़े डायमेंशन है, जैसे सिविल वॉर को दूसरे तरीके से समझने की जरूरत है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को थोड़ा और बेहतर तरीके से समझने की जरूरत है. Napoleon has become more important, and then finally I'll say that the chartists like and these kind of topics which were earlier not very important, now they have gained more significance. Okay, fine. Then it comes to industrialization. Industrialization again, it's one of the very old topic, and it is one topic where the historians have written in more. आपको n number of writings मिलेगी industrialization के ऊपर, और frankly speaking अगर सच में आप अगर dimensions ढूंढना चाहे तो इसमें कमी नहीं, there is no dearth of dimension, because there might be n number of dimensions under which you can understand like the industrial revolution. And what would be good for you, because you can see that how frequently the questions are being asked, on industrial revolution, specifically the first part, it's about the English industrial revolution, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Almost every year they have been asking the questions like, from this part. So recurring themes, right? But then they have started like, finding the, मैंने फिर से वही बात I'll repeat कि जब भी आप किसी थीम पे बहुत frequent questions देखेंगे तो इसका मतलब है कि वहां से थोड़े नए dimensions आपके निकलेंगे, ठीक है? So uh, uh, like look at this question. The course of the English industrialization was too long drawn to be considered as a revolution. Now these are certain critical aspects which are being asked. If we'll compare it with the previous like question, in that case you may find that previous like questions were somehow based on a very generic theme. Now they are becoming more specialized. Okay. On the other hand, when it comes to the industrialization in the other countries, like lesser number of questions are being asked. 18, 24, like in last 11 years only 2 questions have been asked. तो थोड़ा इसको आप जो है साइडलाइन कर सकते हैं या थोड़ा माइन्यूटली जो है इसको स्टडी कर सकते हैं rather than paying like proper attention to it, right? Industrialization and globalization, no question has been asked, but then you can should understand that this globalization in a like a later phenomena becomes very important, so you can expect the question in the later stage. So that's what I can say for this part. Nothing else is very important, right? Let's move to the next one. That is about the nation state system. So rise of nationalism in 19th century. Again, these kind of topics at one point of time they were very important, like but abhi itne important nahi hai. फिर भी जो है in 2019 and 21 like two questions were being asked. Then nationalism, specifically the unification of Germany and Italy. Now this is like as far as Italy, 15, 19 and 22, like on regular intervals the questions are there. Germany you can find more questions, so 14, 17, 17 there were two questions, like 18, two questions, 20, 24. So Germany इसका जो है ये repeated topic है, ठीक है? Again like you can say कि if it is being repeated so frequently, in that case you can find some like more questions out from this part. Okay, let's move to the next part. Is imperialism and colonialism, okay? So what is like general questions, like there are certain questions which are basically very very general. 13, 14, like they used to ask the questions, and in fact like at one point of time, now somehow I can say they have been paying proper attention to it, but then now these kind of themes have become very old, and that's why they have stopped asking the question from this. Now it will go to the new imperialism, right? Now this is gaining significance. So now here you can find 13, 14, 14 and then 15, 22. Now this is new imperialism has always been important. तो वो जो है आपके लिए important है, थोड़ा उसको देखना है. Then South and Southeast Asia. This is what I was just trying to suggest you, that earlier they were not paying proper attention to these areas, but then look at the area. 19 they ask a question in the Malay Peninsula. In 22 they ask in one question in Southeast Asia, ठीक है? And then it's cultural difference and western education. तो ये सारे कुछ नए dimensions है, specifically मैं कहूँगा साउथ ईस्ट एशियन हिस्ट्रीज में, और इसके पीछे reasons है, because जिस तरीके से साउथ एशिया या फिर वेस्ट एशियन स्टडीज के जो सेंटर्स हैं, they started establishing in like most of the universities, and in fact like people got inclined towards the studies of these. Earlier people were more interested in American history, the European history. अभी क्या है, थोड़ा साउथ ईस्ट एशियन या वेस्ट एशियन हिस्ट्री पे जो है वो लोग काम कर रहे हैं, ठीक है? तो यहाँ से दिस इज वन पार्ट फ्रॉम व्हाट लाइक द नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आर इंक्रीजिंग. लैटिन अमेरिका इन 2016 दे आस्क्ड वन क्वेश्चन. बहुत पूछते नहीं है लैटिन अमेरिका से, बट ठीक है, इन फ्यूचर यू कैन फाइंड द क्वेश्चन. सो दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक can be viewed in this way. Okay, fine. Then it comes to the revolution and the counter revolution. Fine. So revolution and counter revolution, it's like mostly in context of Europe, right? And in fact like 1830s, 40s, 50s, like not 50s, 18 like 30s, 40s, these are two decades in which you can find that there were so many major transformations have happened, and in fact like it is known as a period of revolution and counter revolution. So from 13 to 14 you will see like the first topic, 19th century European revolution. So on regular intervals the questions are there, okay? On the other hand, if you go to the like other important event, that is Russian revolution. So now Russian revolution has not remained so significant, because you should understand that Russian revolution was one important topic, and in fact it was a sort of role model for the world, that how the socialism could be brought through the revolution. But then since it has been itself reverted, and that's how now people can be asked, or the UPSC people can be asked the sort of negative dimension of it, okay, or the other dimensions of it, right? Then the fascist and the like fascist counter revolution, Italy and Germany. So again this is one part which is like there in the limelight, और ये रहेगा, ऐसा नहीं है, like of course the question would be asked. So it is more asked in Italy rather than Germany. Chinese revolution, that was another part of it. And Chinese Revolution, like again on some regular intervals, you can find the question from the Chinese Revolution or the Mao's leadership. So I can say in general it remains important. आप इसको ये भी नहीं कह सकते कि that has gone like out fashion and then like questions are not coming. The questions are coming. Okay, fine. The in world history segment you can find that the number of questions have started increasing from the World War onwards, right? Up World War onwards, when I'm saying so, it doesn't mean that I'm talking only about the World War. Rather, the other things which are also happening in the World War, like around World War, that these are important. Okay, fine. So look, as I told you that if we'll talk about the general question, there is nothing new to be asked here in this particular part, because like if we'll talk about the general questions 15, 15, 17, 19, these are certain general questions that have been asked. But then on the new dimensions such as Paris Peace Treaty, earlier it was not very important, but then this is one topic which is gaining some importance. League of Nations, like not very important, ठीक है, बहुत basic studies चाहिए इसमें आपको, बहुत ज़्यादा डिटेल में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. The interwar period is also like there was just one question that has been asked in the interwar period, and then World War II. Again, like questions in from World War II they have been asking. In fact, in the recent times, you can find more frequent questions 18, 19, 20, 21, 24. So the questions like are somehow somehow increasing from the Second World War. So again, I'll say ki this is like the First World War as compared to First World War and the interwar period, the Second World War has gained more significance during this recent times. Okay. Then the world after the Second World War, right? So the world after the Second World War. So here you can find that yes, the number of questions in the recent times is increasing. 14, 15, 16, 18, 24, like लास्ट पे पिछले कुछ समय में कम हुआ है, but ठीक है, post world war is always important, and in fact on various other peripheral things like such as the third world and the non-alignment, like look at the questions from the third world and the non-alignment movement, ठीक है, 19, 20, 21, 23. So here like this is one topic like which are like somehow becoming important. So जो जिसके जिसके ऊपर ये लोग पहले बहुत importance नहीं देते थे, ठीक है. So यूएनओ से भी क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं, ठीक है, और रिसेंटली भी आ रहे हैं. इट इज वन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन व्हिच इज ऑलवेज रेलेवेंट, एंड दैट्स हाउ आई कैन से कि दिस फ्रॉम दिस पार्ट द क्वेश्चंस आर like coming. Then it comes to the liberation from the colonial rule. So here you can find that Latin America, which was earlier like not that much frequent, but ठीक है, Latin America से questions आ रहे हैं, और Latin America में basically Bolivar's like Simon Bolivar, and then post colonial overcoming, specifically how Latin America countries managed to rise. 2023 this question was there. So Latin America से थोड़े questions आने शुरू हुए with respect to basically their liberation movement. Arab world से questions आने शुरू हुए, ठीक है. And in fact, what are the areas that you can see? Evolution of the Arab nationalism, role of like key actors, the conflict and the changes. So in the recent times, like these are the topics which had become more important. Africa say like the questions are coming, and these are the recent questions, right? So this is what I had been suggesting. Southeast Asia, like very frequently questions were being asked, and again you can find 2023 then 16 like questions are coming in this one. So basically I'll say that this is one unit that has become very important for you, and in fact like all those topics, either you say the Arab world or Africa or Latin America, okay, then the regional specifications, the various personalities, key personalities and their movement, now this has gained more significance in the recent times. Okay, next is the decolonization and underdevelopment. Again like these are the these are the topics which are very relevant in the current time, and that's how like from these areas like you can find that the increasing number of questions like from this part. Okay, fine. So ये part है जिस पे आपको like you have to focus more. Okay, that's all about like the topics like these. Sorry, one more topic is the unification of Europe. ठीक है, ये बहुत common topic है, इसमें से बहुत ज़्यादा हम question expect नहीं कर सकते हैं, ठीक है. So there are certain questions which are coming anyways. So if you'll go for the if you'll go for basically the world history, in that case like there are just few suggestions that you have to keep in mind. So the way I just tried to emphasize on the questions, on the basis of that, what are the key elements that could be highlighted, right? There are certain topics like there are certain topics which are basically evergreen, and since they are like they are becoming part of the syllabus, and that too as a separate unit, so they cannot be completely avoided. So there are two things like I can say they are evergreen topics, but some are very frequent. On the other hand, like some are less frequent, some are less frequent. Fine. So this is what I can say. Now, those which are less frequent, like try to collect some general information, some general info. That's it. But whatsoever you had been doing, like keep on doing that only. Here you don't need to be very specific or very particular about those things. Rather, what you are supposed to do, collect the general information, and for that, any basic material, right? Or any basic book. That may be the book of Jan and Mathur. That may be the book of Ranjan Chakravarti. I don't find that Ranjan Chakravarti does have so much points to write the answers, and that's why you should focus on any general note. In fact, मैं कहता हूँ कि अगर आपकी थोड़ी बहुत understanding ठीक है और नहीं ठीक है तो you can fix it by reading the NCERTs, and after reading NCERTs, once you became chronologically sound, then you can go for any notes reading, and from any material it could have been done. So when it comes to the less frequent topics, you don't need to change your approach altogether. Rather, keep on following the same trend what you have been following earlier. And but on every topic you should have the points. कि हाँ भाई मेरे पास 10 point है. If any question is coming, I will be able to write 10 points very without any problem. But then those questions which are very frequently asked, now they have started getting into the new dimensions of those topics, right? यहाँ पे ये लोग नए डायमेंशन जो है ये लोगों ने हंट करने शुरू किए हैं. So here you need to somehow develop more conceptual understanding, because only once you go to the conceptual understanding you will be able to open up the dimensions, the various dimensions, and then you cover information collect information on those various dimensions. And again the pointers should be ready कि हाँ ठीक है अगर ये dimension कहता है तो ये 6 point है मेरे पास वो मुझे लिखना है. That would be the best way of dealing with it, right? So basically the topics should be seen in this way. Okay, fine. So these are topics which are evergreen. They were so frequent, they were so popular, and that's how they had been coming. The new topics which are gaining significant these days, now that is a new thing. I told you that if they have been asking the questions on the new topic, in that case they were not getting into deeper. But then yeah, they are not getting into deeper. But then since I told you that either it is like Southeast Asian history, right, or it is Africa, right, or it is Latin America, or it is let's say the Arab world. Now these are the new things they have become very important, and in fact this is one part where you need to pay proper attention. So by paying proper attention to this part, I believe that you'll be able to write the answers properly. But then in world history, don't get into don't get into collecting great amount of information. I have to collect so much information, and then I have to write a very good answer. I have to include so much historiography. Frankly speaking, this much historiography is not needed. A journalistic survey like answer can also get you the marks. So in world history, you should not bother a lot, because already the people understand, UPSC people understand that there are a lot to read. How come somebody could do justice with all the topics? हाँ, but लेकिन मैं कुछ topics कहूँगा जहाँ पे अगर एक दो scholars के नाम आप रखें, जैसे मान for the sake of an example, now the areas such as American Revolution is very important, correct? And in fact, you have been seeing the questions are coming from this part. So if you have just one or two scholars, that would be good for you. And in fact, in that part, you don't need to collect the information on the recent historians. Rather, the same old historians, Charles Beard की बात कर लीजिए आप, ठीक है, मेरिल जॉनसन की बात कर लीजिए, या फिर हॉब्सबॉम यूरोपियन हिस्ट्री में the popular events which are there, Eric Hobsbawm, David Thompson is very important. So in this part, you don't need to collect information on some recent scholars. ठीक है, एज ओल्ड हिस्टोरियंस जो हैं, ठीक, उनके नाम अगर याद रहते उससे भी काम चल जाएगा. लेकिन यहाँ पे उन टॉपिक्स पे हिस्टोरियंस आपको कलेक्ट करने हैं जो बहुत फ्रिक्वेंट है और जो थोड़े डिबेटेबल है, जैसे अमेरिकन इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन, सॉरी, ब्रिटिश इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन. Now this is one thing which is which is one of the topics in the world history which has been written a lot. तो इसका मतलब है कि यहाँ पे थोड़ा इसको ठीक से करना पड़ेगा. So when it comes to the world history, these are the only suggestions that I'll be providing or I'll be giving to you. And in fact, when it comes to the sources, I have already told you that you can collect the information from any of the source. But then what happens normally if you have been reading a material, in that case, the new topics what I'm asking you to highlight on, these topics are not given in a proper way. So for that, you need to collect the information. And in fact, the books like Jan and Mathur, or else if you read Ranjan Chakravarti, or the book what I mostly prescribe to the students, that is the book of Ralph and Burns, that is volume C, the third volume, right? Only the third volume. That would be also good for you, right? So these are certain books which can get you. Ralph and Burns would be would be the advice from my side, because Ranjan Chakravarti mein information बहुत कम है. Jan and Mathur mein there is no analytical information. The pointers are there in Jan and Mathur, but that particular book of Ralph and Burns, that remains a sort of scholarly writing. So that could be a better book, I guess. But then it depends. I can say कि even material पढ़ के भी इस area में काम चल जाएगा. तो यहाँ पे आपको thematic understanding पे develop करना है. Thematic understanding मतलब on every theme you should have information. On certain themes you get like you need to get deeper, and then I can say कि you can go for like collecting information on them, and that is like all about this side, right? So nothing else is very important, like one world history. This is one area which can get you somehow better marks, and that's how you can prepare it. Okay, fine. So that's all for the world, like world history. Now this is my like Telegram link, and if you guys really want to like be in touch with me, you want to ask certain questions. So basically, in this Telegram group, you can find me, and I am mostly answering like those questions. And in fact, we run certain free initiatives also on our Telegram channel, such as like every day I update one notes on a particular theme, and there was a question along with it, and then you can write the answer of this question, and by the evening you get the model hint, and the answer which is like considered as best one or two answers, they were also being uploaded. Then you can get this idea that how the students have been writing the good answers. So this is one initiative which goes from like starts on Monday and then goes up to Friday. So this is one initiative which is there. So if you guys like want to become part of it, then also like you can join this particular channel, to be just part of it, right? Apart from it, if you have certain doubts and all, so through this like you can definitely connect with. That's all for today. So thank you very much. So we'll be meeting tomorrow for the next and the last session of this history optional boot camp. That is on the map segment, right? It is very important, and I'll just come up with some of the some valid suggestions for it, or the right way of doing it. So that we'll be doing in tomorrow as well. Thank you very much.